Welcome to the deep dive. Let's talk about the void.
The void.
Yeah, you know the one. You fire up your machine, you open a fresh terminal window, and you're just staring at it.
Just a blank black screen.
Exactly. A blank screen with this tiny little cursor just blinking back at you. It's the command line. You know there is an unbelievable amount of power sitting right there at your fingertips.
But until you actually type something, it's just dead space.
Right.
It's the ultimate digital blank canvas. And for anyone whose day-to-day work lives primarily in the terminal, whether you're managing infrastructure or writing code or pushing deployments, having that real estate just sitting idle feels like a massive missed opportunity.
It really does.
Your terminal should be working for you even when you aren't actively running a command.
And that exact sentiment is why today's source material is so compelling. We're diving into a really fascinating piece by tech journalist Deepak Ghosh.
Over at How to Geek.
Right. The article is titled, What is WTF and How to Create a Linux Terminal Dashboard with It. And our mission for this deep dive is to explore how this completely free open source tool transforms your standard terminal into a highly personalized command center.
Which is a huge shift in how we usually think about the command line.
Totally. The goal here is basically saving you from the absolute chaos of constantly jumping between different apps all day long.
The philosophy behind this is what makes it worth analyzing, I think. We are constantly discussing ways to optimize digital workflows, right? And this tool takes a somewhat contrarian approach.
How so?
Well, instead of buying another sauce product or, installing some heavy desktop app with a massive memory footprint, you are centralizing your scattered data streams into a lightweight, text-based grid.
Yeah.
It's a very Unix philosophy approach to modern productivity. Do one thing, do it well, and keep it in the terminal.
Okay, let's unpack this. What exactly is WTF?
Or wtfutil, as it's known in the repos.
Right, wtfutil. Fundamentally, it's a personal information dashboard built for the terminal.
That's exactly.
And as we mentioned, it's completely free, it's open source, and this is key. It's written in Go.
Yes. The choice of Go is a significant factor in why it's been so successful.
Because of the compilation.
Exactly. Go compiles down to a single binary, which makes distribution and execution incredibly fast and clean. You don't have to worry about managing complex dependency trees or spinning up a heavy runtime environment just to check your calendar.
Right, you just run it, and you get the cross-platform magic, too.
Yeah.
The author details how it runs natively on Linux and macOS, obviously.
Right.
But even if you are on a Windows machine, you can run it seamlessly via WSL, the Windows subsystem for Linux.
Which is great. You aren't locked out of the ecosystem just because of your underlying OS.
Exactly.
What's fascinating here is how strongly this resonates with the developer community. The article points out some specific stats that are pretty telling.
Oh, the GitHub numbers.
Right. The wtfutil project has amassed well over 16,000 stars and over 800 forks on GitHub. In the open source community, those aren't just vanity metrics. You don't get 16,000 developers starring a terminal utility unless it is actively solving a very painful, very common workflow problem.
And that problem is app fatigue, the cognitive cost of context switching.
Exactly.
I mean, you've all been there. You're deep in the zone, writing code, and then you need to check your schedule or see if a server is up.
Right.
So you take your hands off the keyboard, you grab your mouse, you open a browser, navigate through 3 different tabs, and suddenly you notice an unread email.
And it's over.
30 minutes later, you've completely lost your train of thought.
Context switching destroys deep work. Every time you leave your primary workspace, you leak mental energy. The dashboard approach neutralizes that friction completely.
Because it's all just there.
Exactly. Imagine checking your calendar, your system stats, and your news feeds in one glance without ever touching your mouse. They are sitting right there in your peripheral vision.
You never leave the keyboard.
You never Alt-tab into the distraction trap of a web browser. And the entire dashboard is modular.
Right, you don't just get a static layout. The user gets to dictate the size, the placement, the data source of every single widget.
You're constructing a personalized lens for your data, filtering out the noise so you only render the telemetry that is strictly relevant to you.
Okay, so how do we actually get this thing running? The article lays out a few different installation paths.
Depending on your package manager, yeah.
Right. You can build it from source if you use Go. Or if you're on Arch, it's in the AUR. Or you can grab a pre-built binary straight from GitHub, which the author notes is the most involved method.
Yeah, managing manual binaries and path variables can get a bit tedious.
So what's the recommendation?
The author's top recommendation is Homebrew. It's arguably the most frictionless route for cross-platform ease.
Just a simple brew install.
Exactly. And more importantly, when there's an update, a simple brew upgrade command keeps your dashboard current.
Nice. So you install it and then what?
Firing it up for the first time is actually a delightful experience. You run the wtfutil command, and you aren't just dropped into an intimidating blank screen.
They give you a default view.
Right. The developers provide a highly functional default layout right out of the box.
Which includes what? Let's see, the article lists 2 clocks showing different time zones.
A feed reader.
Yep, an IPinfo block, system uptime, and real-time power consumption stats.
It's a really smart onboarding tactic. Instead of forcing you to read a manual, you instantly see it pulling live data the second you launch it.
But there is one specific detail in that default dashboard that I completely geek out over.
The meta feature.
Yes. Alongside the clocks and the network stats, there's a text file module. And the file it's actively displaying is config.yml.
Right.
It is displaying the very code that is generating the dashboard you are looking at. It's so recursive. I love it.
It is recursive, but it's also brilliant UX design. By putting the configuration code front and center, the tool demystifies itself immediately.
Right. It's saying, look, no hidden tricks.
Exactly. No hidden registries, no compiled databases. Everything you see is controlled by this single readable text file.
Here's what it gets really interesting. That file, the config.yml file, located in your .config folder, is the brain of the entire operation.
It is. If you launch wtfutil and that file doesn't exist, it just spins it up for you with those default.
So let's break down that config file. How does it actually work?
It's pretty straightforward. It's divided into 2 main sections. First, you have the WTF section.
Which does what?
That controls the dashboard's general behavior, global variables, grid size, refresh intervals, things like that.
Got it. And this second section?
That's the mods section, short for modules. That is where the individual widgets live. Every module's data source and its exact physical coordinates on your screen are defined right there.
Dibakar shares a really practical example in the text of how easy this is to change. So that default view has a feed reader, right?
Pulling the BBC RSS feed by default.
Exactly. But let's say you want to change that to a how-to geek feed. You don't have to navigate through some clunky graphical settings menu.
Right.
You literally just open the YAML file, swap out the default BBC URL for the how-to geek URL, and instantly your news source changes.
You can change positional values just as easily. Move a widget from the top left to the bottom right just by changing a number. Or if you hate a module, delete its code entirely and it vanishes.
And there are so many modules to choose from.
Oh, a massive library.
Yeah, the author points the listener to wtfutil.com/Shiro modules. There are over 60 available modules there.
Everything from Docker container stats to Jira tickets to Google Calendar.
And you just copy-paste the config code?
Yep. Copy the snippet, paste it into your config.yml, and you're good to go. They even come with key bindings for interacting with them.
It's amazing. But, and we have to talk about this, there is a catch.
A YAML trap.
Yes, the double-edged sword of YAML formatting.
It's a very real thing. YAML is incredibly human-readable, which is why it's so popular. But it issues a gentle, or sometimes not so gentle, warning to users. It relies heavily on strict indentation.
Right, there are no brackets to save you here.
Exactly. If your spaces or tabs are off, even by a single space, the modules won't nest properly. The config breaks. And WTF simply won't launch.
It just fails.
It just fails. For developers used to writing infrastructure code, it's a familiar annoyance. But for a newer user, hunting down an invisible space can be maddening.
So what does this all mean for someone who isn't a seasoned programmer? Somebody who doesn't want to spend an hour troubleshooting YAML spaces?
Well, this is where the article takes a really innovative turn.
Yes. The Claude workaround, I thought this was brilliant. Debakar admits in the article that he's a non-programmer himself. So he completely bypassed the YAML trap using AI.
It's a fantastic use case for LLMs.
He literally just grabbed a piece of paper and drew a rough sketch of his ideal dashboard. Just boxes on a page. Calendar goes here, RSS feed here. Then he uploaded that hand-drawn sketch to Claude and asked it to generate the YAML config file for wtfutil based on the drawing.
And because AI models are excellent at structuring data, it worked.
Flawlessly. He just copy-pasted the code Claude gave him, and boom, a fully custom dashboard without writing a single line of YAML.
Synthesizing this with a fascinating nugget from the source material sidebar actually validates this approach even more.
Oh, the comparison piece.
Yes. There's an article linked noting that while Google's Gemini has a lot of promise, Claude wins hands down when it comes to writing code.
So choosing Claude for this specific formatting task was actually the optimal move.
Exactly. It completely removed the barrier to entry. But even with AS helping you format, there's still the issue of module limits.
Right. Even with 60-plus modules, they can't cover every single app in existence.
Which brings us to what the author considers the most powerful module of all.
CmdRunner.
CmdRunner, this is the crown jewel of the entire project.
Because it lets you do whatever you want.
Precisely. CmdRunner allows the user to run literally any terminal command as a module.
Any command.
Any command that outputs text. You can run a custom Python script, a curl request to a random API, or grep your local system logs.
And it just pipes that output directly into a widget on your dashboard.
Yes. It executes on a schedule you define and renders the output in your grid. It gives the dashboard literally limitless customization potential.
That is incredible. So if my company has some obscure internal tool, I don't have to wait for someone to build a WTF integration.
Right.
I just write a basic script to fetch the data and plug it into CmdRunner.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, tools like CmdRunner bridge the gap between closed ecosystems and total user freedom. You are no longer waiting on vendors. You own the interface.
You own the interface. That is such a powerful way to look at it. And it really wraps up why this deep dive is so relevant right now.
Yeah.
WTF is this rare, completely free tool that actually earns a permanent spot in your workflow.
It's not just a novelty.
No, not at all. It takes a single terminal window, that blank void we talked about at the beginning, and turns it into an ultimate customizable multitasker.
Which raises an important question for you to ponder.
Yeah.
Think about this. In an era where we rely on heavy memory-hogging graphical interfaces for absolutely everything, what does it say about our productivity that the ultimate shortcut to being well-informed might just be a lightweight, text-based grid?
A grid completely designed by an AI based on a napkin sketch.
Exactly. It really makes you ask.
Yep.
Are graphical user interfaces actually slowing us down?
Wow. Our GI is actually slowing us down. That is definitely something to chew on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this sparks some ideas for your own workflow. Stay curious, and hey, maybe try sketching out your own perfect terminal dashboard today. We'll catch you next time.